Hi guys, this is JP from FSiPanel. On this video, I will show you how to use the Advanced Edition failure panel. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. That will help me making more and more video for you. Alright, before we start, let's see the summary. Okay, the first step is to select a failure. All the failures are listed by their respective system ATA, just like in a real simulator. Then you need to select the trigger. A trigger is when do you want your failure to be activated, on which criteria. FSiPanel has 7 different trigger options. We will see that. And finally, the last step is to arm the failure. You can decide to activate the failure right now or to arm it based on the trigger you selected just above. If you own FSiPanel Advanced Edition and you're flying PMDG 737 or the Leonardo Maddog MD82, by clicking on failure, you will get to the Advanced Edition failure panel. You can see there all the systems are classified with their ATA number to select the right ATA and the right failure that you would like to trigger. For example, 28 fuel, if I click on fuel, now I will get all the possible options, all the possible failure that I can activate with FSiPanel. So now if I select, for example, the left forward pump, then I will get to the trigger menu. You can see there selected ATA 28 fuel. This is what we wanted. The selected failure is the left forward pump. And now we have to go for a trigger. We have to select a trigger. So what are the possible triggers? Let's have a look. So FSiPanel has 7 different triggers for you to choose. Obvious one like fail now. If you click on it, your failure will be activated right away. As well, very obviously, fail in 30 or 60 seconds. This is quite clear. And then we have the altitude MSL. This is what your altimeter is showing. Altitude AGL. This is altitude above ground level. Basically what your radio altimeter is showing. We have the indicated airspeed, flap lever position, and finally gear lever position. So you have to select one of these triggers for the failure to be activated. Okay, so now this is how it shows in the FSiPanel trigger options. You can see fail now, very obvious. Fail in 30 seconds, fail in 60 seconds. This is the very obvious trigger options. Now, just above, you have the 5 other trigger options, which are altitude MSL, altitude AGL, indicated airspeed, flaps lever, and gear lever. Below that, you have the aircraft data. So if you look below altitude MSL, you can see my altitude MSL. This is my actual aircraft right now. She's flying at 2,224 feet. Altitude AGL, same altitude because I'm flying over the sea. I'm in Los Angeles over the sea. Then my indicated airspeed, right now I'm flying 205 knots. My flaps lever position is flaps up. And finally, my gear lever position is gear up. This is a reminder, so it helps you to set correctly your trigger. So now let's see, let's try with altitude MSL. So if you click on altitude MSL, you get the next window which asks you to enter the value, your desired criteria for failure. So right now again you have a reminder that your actual aircraft altitude is 2,224 feet MSL. So here you have to be very careful on one thing, that your criteria is not met right away. For example, imagine I put 1,800 feet right there. So now you can see that on the trigger summary, the trigger will be when the aircraft climbs through 1,800 feet. So right now we are at 2,224 feet, which means the aircraft has already climbed through 1,800 feet. So if I arm now, guess what? Yes, the failure will be activated right away. So be careful. This happens as well in a real world where the instructor said something and it's already the criteria is already met and the failure occurs right away, and this is not intentional. So you have to be very careful. So for example, now if you would like to fail this pump when we fly through 2,300 feet, so I will go altitude MSL. As you can see, we have plus climbing, minus descending. The plus is not mandatory, but the minus is. So let's try first with climb, and then I will show you for descend. So we want to have the failure activated when we go above 2,300 feet. So I'll click 2,300 feet. Okay. I make sure I have the right summary here. and now I can click on arm now. So when you click on arm now, you can see that we have the failure armed. Amber means armed. So we can see left forward pump when my altitude will be above 2,300 feet MSL. Now if you click on that failure right there, you have these possible options. Either delete it, so then the failure will never be activated. Fail now, if you don't want to wait for the 2,300 feet, or back, obviously, to close that window. Same thing if I go back to failures, I have all my system ATA that are still there, but you can see that we have one amber ATA, number 28, which is fuel, that has obviously an armed condition because it's amber. And if you click on it, you can see that the left forward pump is armed. Now if you click again on left forward pump, same as before, you can delete, fail, or fail now, or go back. So basically, this is how we set the failure and select the trigger, and now it's armed. So let's see in the aircraft now, when we go 2,300 feet, what's gonna happen. All right, I'm in the cockpit, flying over the sea, as you can see, and we have 2,200 feet, exactly what we wanted, and now we will try this failure. So we set 2,300 feet, so let's climb to 3,000 to 3,500 feet, and let's see what happened. Level change, MCP speed, and we will see what happened when we climb above 2,300 feet. So 2,300 feet, this is our trigger point. I will go vertical speed, that's good enough. And now the pump should have triggered, so it takes a bit of time because the system has to find out that we have low pressure on the fuel pump. And you can see there, low pressure. Right, so now the failure, fuel, is triggered, and we have the left forward pump activated. Perfect. So this is what we wanted. So if you go back to FSiPanel now, let's see how it shows. As you can see now, we have left forward pump, which is red because it's been activated. Right, so let's try something else now. If I go to failure, and I will choose again fuel. Now we will fail the left or the right forward pump. Okay, so if I click on right forward pump, now again, you can see that my altitude right now is 3,598 feet. And my altitude AGL is above 2,500 feet. Radio altimeter only shows at or below 2,500 feet. My speed is 207, and so on and so on. All right, so let's try now to set a new trigger when we are descending, this time through to 3,500 feet. So if I go altitude MSL, remember, if I put 3,500 feet, just like this, now, if you look in the summary, you see trigger when the aircraft climbs through 3,500 feet. We are already above. So if I arm now, guess what? Yes, the failure will be activated right away. This is not what we want. So for that, I did something different. I have implemented something different. You will just click 3,500. And now you click on your minus sign on your keyboard. And you get this minus in front. And when you click OK, now you can see trigger when the aircraft descends through 3,500 feet. So now if I arm now, it doesn't activate, as you can see, because we don't met yet the criteria, but it's armed. And now if we click on the failure, we have the ATA 28 showing red. It's red because at least one failure has been activated, which is this one. The right forward pump is still armed. So let's descend to 3,400 feet and see if we get the right forward pump trigger. So let's go back in the simulator and we will descend to 3,300 feet in vertical speed. And let's see what happened with our forward pump. So we can see that we have already the left forward pump, and now we should have the right forward pump trigger as soon as we go below 3,400 feet. So let's have a look there. And remember that if you trigger a failure sometimes, like hydraulic, you need to lose some fluid before you see any indication. So you have to give the aircraft some time. Right, we have low pressure, so the trigger has been executed and your failure is activated. All right, so let's go back into the panel. And as you can see there, we have the two failures which are red, therefore activated. Now, if you want, for example, to clear the left forward pump, you have two options. Either you go from there, click on it, and clear the malfunction. You have the option there to clear all malfunctions. The aircraft will be perfectly fine. So this is one way. Or you can go via the main menu, fuel, left forward pump, and then again clear malfunctions. So now I clear the left forward pump. So let's see that in the simulator. Left forward pump is clearing up, perfect. And in FSiPanel, you can see that the left forward pump is not anymore showing as failed, and we only have the right forward pump. Right, so let's clear all the malfunctions. So I can click here, clear all malfunction. Now it will take a few seconds and you will see that everything will disappear. We have no more failure. If I go in the aircraft, we have no more failure. Right, so this is how we set altitude MSL. Okay, so let's try something else now. We will use again fuel. We'll use the same failure. We saw altitude MSL with the example. The same applies for altitude AGL with a plus or minus. The plus is optional. You don't need to type anything if you want a climbing through criteria. If it's a descending, you can type on your keyboard the minus key before or after the number. Is up to you. And then your number, and this is how FSiPanel recognizes if it's climbing or descending. Now let's make an example with an indicated airspeed. You can see that right now we are flying 205 knots. Let's say you would like the failure to occur when ATC asks you to reduce speed 180 knots or to reduce speed, let's say 200 knots. So remember, if now I'll put 200 knots without the minus sign, right away it will be activated. So I'll just click my minus sign, and now you can see trigger when the aircraft decelerates through 200 knots. Perfect. So arm. We can see again on the main screen the condition, IAS less than 200 knots. So let's go in the simulator and we'll reduce the speed just below 200 knots and see if we trigger anything. Here I should not go below up speed, but for this tutorial just do it for a few seconds just to trigger the malfunctions. Then I will be able to show you the same with the flaps and the gear. Right, so 200 knots is our criteria. We are getting there. 200 knots, so now I went below. I will just go up speed, and normally if I go up here, by the time the system recognizes that we have a loss of pressure, we should get that light, that's it, low pressure that lights up. Okay, this is how we trigger with the altitude MSL, altitude AGL, and the indicated airspeed, the same way for all these three triggers. Let's go back in the panel. Again, we can see that now this failure is activated, and we will try the last two triggers. So let's try, for example, now a right forward pump, and this time we will use the flap lever. So right now my flaps are up. So if I go flaps lever, I get the possible options for the aircraft you're flying. So for the 737, we have all those flap settings. So for example, if I go flaps 1, now you can see that my failure will be triggered when the flaps are moved to flaps 1. Arm, and as you can see now, it's armed, so we need to select flaps 1. So let's go in the sim. Perfect, we're gonna go flaps 1. Here we go. Flaps moving 1. As soon as they reach 1, we should get that right forward pump. Let's see. Again, a few seconds for the fuel pressure to drop. And we get our failure activated, low pressure. Perfect. So this is how we use it, with the flaps. Let's try the last one. So now we will try with the landing gear, and we can try something else. Let's put electrical, and we are flying on autopilot. Left command. So let's fail the generator 2, so we don't lose the autopilot on the demonstration. So generator 2, and we are going this time to fail it whenever the gear level is down. Here again, if you will put gear up, it will trigger right away because the condition is met. So I'll go gear down. So now my gear, when the gear is extended, I will have the electrical failure. Arm now. You can see it's armed. Let's go in the sim, and we're gonna bring our gear down. Now the gear is going down. Three greens, and now we should have a nice electrical malfunctions, and you can see it right there. Perfect. So now you see that all the failures have been activated as per our decisions, as per our triggers. So let's go in the panel, and here we can see the 3 failures that have been activated. I want to show you something as well, which is not obvious, but is very important to know. Now the generator 2 is failed. If I clear that malfunction, let me show you something first. In the simulator right now, if I try to put the checklist, the QRH will ask you to try to put it back on the bus. As you can see, it doesn't work because my generator is failed. So let's see if I clear the malfunction in FSiPanel. So now I will clear that malfunctions there. So generator 2 fail was a failure. Now it will go away. Now if I go in the simulator, you still have the light. This is normal because the 737 doesn't automatically reset the generator. So you need to put it on the bus. So now if you put it on the bus, it's fixed. So sometimes I get some request of pilots saying, I cleared the malfunction, but it's still active. Yes, it is still active because you need a pilot action, right? So this is how we do it. For the fuel, it's a fuel pressure. So if you clear it, if you clear all the malfunction, then right away it will disappear like we saw before. Okay, to summarize the options, you have 2 buttons on FSiPanel when you have selected your trigger. The first one is arm now. So if your criteria is not met, and be careful with that, as I told you during the presentation, if your criteria are not met, then the failure is armed and it will show a number on your screen. And then the failure will be armed immediately. Wherever your aircraft is, on ground, in the air, it is armed immediately. And whenever the criteria is met, then the failure will be activated. The next options you have, and you saw that button right next to the arm now, is arm on next approach. I'll give you an example. You're sitting on ground in Los Angeles, and you would like, for example, your failure to occur whenever you lower the gear on short final during your approach in Los Angeles. Then you will program your approach, and then you will program your failure, and then you have to press move aircraft, take the control, fly the approach, and then when your criteria is met, then the failure will be activated. So let's make a quick demonstration with that, and you will understand it better. All right, so we're in the cockpit, and I just loaded the PMDG 737 in Los Angeles on runway 25 left. And now I will bring FSiPanel, and I will show you why we use sometimes the arm on next approach button. All right, as you can see here, Los Angeles 25 left, this is correct. So let's say, for example, I'm doing a long final. You can see my actual altitude. I will be positioned at 2,400 feet at 8 miles final. So now I could pre-select my failure. So I'll go to failure, and I will say, for example, I'd like to lose my autopilot. Let's say I lose FCCA INOP, and we will be at 2,400 feet. So now you have to be careful because this is the actual indication, but you want the system to trigger based on what's going to happen on your approach. So right now my flaps are 5. If I select gear down here, then the gear down will be done by FSiPanel during the positioning. So be careful what you select. Now, for example, I will select altitude AGL 2,000 feet AGL, right? Radio altimeter 2,000 feet. So what I will do, altitude AGL, again, remember the minus sign. and we get the confirmation trigger when the aircraft descends through 2000 feet. And if I arm now, right away it will trigger, of course, because I'm below. But if I'm arm on next approach, this is the purpose of that button, then we need to press move aircraft. So I'm arm on that next approach, sorry. Now as you can see, it's not armed. And now I will click move aircraft. And we will go in the simulator and see what happens. So now FSiPanel, we position our aircraft at 2,400 feet. This is 8 miles final in Los Angeles for runway 25 left. Here we go. So I will just let FSiPanel do the job here at 2,400 feet. And altitude is capturing now very soon, so we'll be ready in a few seconds. And we will see what happened. Alt acquired, 2,400 feet. Perfect. Altitude hold. So now I will get the message that I can take control of the aircraft. Perfect. Aircraft ready. Hold your brake for 3 seconds to take control. So now if I go in FSiPanel, you can see that we have a failure which is armed, and it should occur whenever we are going below 2000 feet AGL. So let's see if that happens. We go in the simulator. I will take the control. Arm the approach. We put the second autopilot. And we will see whenever we have 2000 feet radio altimeter. So this is now altitude AGL descending through 2000 feet. So let's see if that failure is triggered. We should lose autopilot A. So autopilot's the left command. Let's see. We are coming down 100 feet to lose, and we should get the trigger. All right, now we will meet the criteria. As soon as we see 2000 here or below, that's the criteria. So now we will get the failure. Autopilot will disconnect, and this is what's happening. You can see I lost the autopilot. I will try to engage one autopilot. Again, Command B is working. Perfect. I can continue my approach. And Command A, as you can see, is failed. So now if we go in FSiPanel, we can see that FCCA INOP has been activated. So this is why you will use that button. I just show you quickly what I want to show you again. That button, arm on next approach. Nothing will happen during your flight, but will happen after you press move aircraft and when you take the control. All right, this is to pre-select a scenario, for example, to preset something that you want to train. Right, I will show you one last thing, which is very cool. For the Maddog MD82, it's exactly the same process for everything. And now I will show you something that is very cool from Leonardo, MEL. So let's see that. All right, if you fly the Maddog MD82, this is a very nice feature that Maddog has implemented. And that will allow you to basically set any system on MEL. MEL applies only on ground before the flight. So let me show you how that works. All right, I'm sitting on ground in Los Angeles on this beautiful Maddog MD82. And let's go in the cockpit and let's see what we can do now with these MEL items. This is beautiful. So let's imagine you would like to have your APU on MEL. So right now we are on external power, external AC, and we will be ready to start the APU for engine start. And the next crew will be coming, but unfortunately the APU is not working. So how can we simulate that with Maddog? Let me show you that. All right, I'm in FSiPanel, and if I go now to failure, you can see I'm on the Maddog MD82. If I go to failure, I get ITA number 300 MEL items. So if I click on MEL items, this is all the items that you can put on MEL. So for example, we said we would like to fail the APU. So if I go APU, The only options I have is to fail it now, as it should be set on ground, because it's an MEL item that applies only when the aircraft is on ground before next dispatch. So fail now, and look what's happening in the aircraft. Isn't that beautiful? You get a sticker INOP. Of course your APU will not run, but that will alert next crew, hey guys, I have an INOP APU. I think that's pretty cool, and this is very nice if you want to simulate a departure without APU, for example. Very nice. Let's see how it shows in FSiPanel. So in FSiPanel, the MEL item will be in a blue, light blue, as MEL APU. You can clear it as well. And now if you go in the aircraft, then the APU is not failed anymore. This is very nice, isn't it? I love it as well. All right, and on the Maddog MD82, you also have all the possible failures that are classified by ATA, and you will use the exact same procedure as for the PMDG 737. Please remember that FSiPanel doesn't create the failures, it just triggers the available failure of the add-on. All right, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop a comment below, and please subscribe to the channel. That will help me producing more and more video. Thank you guys. As always, stay safe and see you on the next video. Bye bye.